NetFilter is the standard firewall system for Linux. We control the configuration of NetFilter with the iptables command. You do not have to be a wizard with iptables to pass the RHCSA exam, as you should be able to complete any necessary firewalling task with System Config Firewall. However, we are going to look at the basics of iptables to give you an idea of what is going on behind the scenes when you use the System Config Firewall utility. First off, let's take a look at where our current firewall rules are stored, and we will walk through this file discussing how the rules work. Our iptables rules are stored in etc sysconfig iptables. By default, we are just filtering the packets that are going through our system. This is our filter table. The other three tables in NetFilter are the NAT, Mangle, and raw tables, but we are not too concerned with those for the RHCSA exam. Our iptables rules consist of three chains: the input chain, the forward chain, and the output chain. The input chain is for processing packets that are coming into this system. By default, we are accepting all packets that come into our system to start with. The forward chain is intended for packets that would be routed through this system and not intended to be delivered to it. By default, we are accepting all packets that get forwarded through this system. The output chain processes packets that originate from this system. By default, we are accepting all packets leaving this system. Now onto where we have iptables rules that are doing more processing on the packets that traverse our system. First off, we are appending to our input chain, using the state method, any packets that have a state of established or related. In other words, connections that are already up and running. We will take those packets and jump over to our accept chain, meaning at this point we are letting them in. Next, we are appending to our input chain any packets of the ICMP protocol, such as those sent by ping commands. We will also take those packets and jump over to the accept chain, letting those packets through as well. Next, we are appending to our input chain any packets that are intended for our loopback interface. We will take these packets, and by jumping to the accept chain, letting those packets through as well. See how this works? iptables rules can almost be read as sentences, describing what happens to packets that meet certain criteria. This next rule is more in line with the types of rules that you would modify for the RHCSA exam, that is opening ports for services. This rule is defined as we are going to append to our input chain any packets that have a state of new that matches the protocol, TCP, and that are destined for port 22, we will accept. This rule allows us to use the secure shell services to access this system. Next, we are rejecting any other packets, therefore blocking any other connections to this system. Not only are we rejecting them, we are rejecting them with the ICMP host prohibited message. Finally, we are rejecting any packets that are attempting to get forwarded through our system. We are not running a router, so this rule is acceptable. These iptables rules are processed from top to bottom. If a packet meets a certain rule, the other rules following are not checked and the packet is dealt with according to how the rule is configured. For example, any packets coming into the system that are of the ICMP protocol, we accept, and the following rules do not need to be checked. We could modify this file, even though at the top it instructs us not to. The reason for that is if we modify this file, then open it up in System Config Firewall, all of our changes that we made by hand would be lost. So if you intend to alter your firewall by editing this file, make sure that System Config Firewall is not used again on the system to change any firewall rules. If that is the case, the safest bet would be to uninstall System Config Firewall. Let's add a rule to allow port 80, used for web traffic, to come in. The easiest way is to copy a line that is similar to what you want to do. Since we want TCP traffic on port 80 to come in, let's copy our rule for the SSH service that is also using TCP traffic to a certain port. Next, paste it below our current rule for SSH. Now we just change the port to 80. Then we save, then close the file. Now, even though our new rule is in the etc sysconfig iptables file, the port still isn't open in our firewall. We will need to restart our firewall for the new changes to take effect. We will do this with the service command. Now, to check to see if our rule is in place, we will run our first iptables command, which will list for us all of our current rules that are loaded into memory. And we can see that our firewall now has the port for HTTP or port 80 open.